Welcome back to the Telos of Text podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, how is Randy and Nick doing today?
Randy is doing the movements Nick would normally do because Nick is only half alive right now.
I do have a pulse. It is confirmed. I do have a pulse at the moment.
Good.
Whether or not I have two brain cells to rub together right now is kind of out as conjecture, like scientifically speaking. Also, FaceTime calls aren't working great. It seems to be working enough to get through. I am on location at Starbase, and
I couldn't tell.
Unlike the last, I know you were. Randy and Drew are on my phone right now, which is just barely getting just enough service. And so they're looking at the top of my umbrella.
Nick
it's amazing.
Has the best green screen I've ever seen.
And the most poorly framed and leveled camera ever, because I'm recording on top of this big sand dune and there's no level surface anywhere. And everything's just janky and sliding, so I know my vertical lines don't match, but I can't see the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the sun is bright. Welcome to the show.
When I tell you that Nick goes method acting to record these promos for every season, there is no rock left unturned to the way he will go out on location.
But we already did that.
That's right.
Okay.
He's out on location, but
Yep.
The next question I wanted to ask you, Nick, was about the
Did you ask me a first
service.
question?
Has AT&T has AT&T been holding up okay, or
It's better than Verizon around here, which is amazing, because Verizon was literally nothing. But I would not call it a great customer experience or amazing service. First off, which has nothing to do with AT&T, but just annoying in general. Whoever had the phone number that AT&T gave me before owed a lot of people a lot of money, and everybody's been texting me about it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Is this true?
This guy named Ryan, or girl named Ryan, I don't know, it owed a lot of people a lot of money. Lots of insurance companies and lots of, I don't know. Insurance companies is the most frequent one I see. Like literally 6 to 10 times a day, I get text messages, phone calls from random numbers that I've never heard of, talking about companies that I've never heard of.
Up.
No,
this is real.
100% real. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh my God.
Why? Okay, so like an email address, right? That it's unique enough to where you're never gonna really have a duplicate email address. Like, I don't specifically know how Gmail works, but if you tried to get my Gmail address, when I was done, let's say, nickandsweeney@gmail.com, which isn't my email address, by the way, guys. If that wasn't available, that would be because someone else is using it, right? And so, anyway, it's just kind of weird that, I've kind of inherited this person's financial problems in, the annoying aspect of it. That's weird. And there's no way you can know before, and now I've given that number out to plenty of people, and so it's not like I can change it at this point. And it's just so annoying to get, collection calls, and, I don't owe this money. And she also, it signed up for a bunch of 10% off coupons with that number, and it's just a mess. I've literally
you'd think they'd give some time between deactivating a number and switching it
right
to someone else.
I literally have
a couple of years.
I literally have 94 unread messages right now. That is just how bad it is. Yeah. And okay, maybe 5 of those, maybe 5 of those are people that I actually want to get back to, but yeah, it's gnarly. So yeah.
Do you have a template text that you get back to them with?
No, I don't respond to any of them. I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I haven't decided, because at first I'm like, is this a scam? If I let them know that I'm actually here, then it's only gonna get worse. So maybe I need not reply. But if these are actually businesses, I've never heard of any of these insurance companies that are asking for money, so I don't know. So anyway, I'm just hoping they forget about it. And anyway, it's just very, very, very annoying. So AT&T is terrible, not just because they have bad service or because it's inconvenient to pay them $100+ a month, but also because they gave him a number that sucks and has been used by someone who was skipping the bank or insurance companies on lots of money. AT&T works
Not
good though. Dual SIM, a little bit better experience with dual SIM, I believe, this week. I think we talked about it last week. Dual SIM for me has been a little bit less of a burden, but this mostly because I'm just defaulting to AT&T instead of trying to switch it to Visible every time that Visible has slightly better bars. The only time I'll actually switch it over to Visible by like manually turning off the AT&T line in settings is when AT&T has like 0 bars and Visible has 5, which again sometimes happens because we're in the middle of nowhere. But where we're sitting right now, we're getting about 2 to 3 bars of 4G LTE, which you'd think would be enough to run a simple FaceTime call. But we're still dropping frames and enjoying some glitches here. But we're making the show work on location because the sun moved, so between shows. But if you watch the EV podcast, which we do, you'll have to watch that later though, because that comes out after this show. You could have seen both BN4 and the SN20 Starship behind me. And actually, while we were recording the EV podcast, SN20 rolled out behind me and has disappeared. So it's gone now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was facing the wrong direction for an hour and a half. So I turned around and was like, oh, it's gone. So that's cool.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
It'll be back.
Hi, guys.
Next week.
Thank you so much for...
Hopefully.
Thank you so much for staying with me, guys. Like, ooh. It's been a rough few days, so we're good now. We're in our regular cadence.
One of these podcast episodes, I want to get it launching in the background as we're talking about the Apple Watch Series 7, and you don't turn around
This is
at
the
all.
biggest thing to ever happen to the world since Series 1 going up.
Right. Can you imagine if the orbital launches on iPhone Day?
Sorry, Drew, but you're going to have to find another guest co-host on iPhone Day.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't expect you to.
I don't know. It could be.
Randy might have to do the whole show by himself, actually.
I was about to say, I'm going to be down there with Nick. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay.
So we're just going to
So
skip
if that happens, there's no iPhone show. It's just not going to happen at all.
I will stream it live. We'll go live on the podcast account. And
from what internet, Randy?
Oh.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm.
Starlink.
Hey, Drew, bring your Starlink. Drew, your Starlink.
We'll go live on the podcast account.
I'll pack it.
And as we're watching the rocket, we'll just be like, so, 120 hertz promotion, huh?
So it's funny you should bring up live streams, Randy, because I've seen a couple comments and people on Twitter like, oh, why don't you live stream? Other people around here live stream. And yes, they do, but y'all don't realize how complicated this situation is. Also, we have some thunderclouds rolling in, so this might get interesting in a second here. My goodness, this might be the most interesting tech podcast we've ever had. I was really hoping they'd blow over, but
there's a tsunami rolling in too.
We'll see how those thunderclouds go. But yeah, so the internet situation is pretty bad, but lots of people do live stream from around here. They're all using LTE hotspots on both Verizon and AT&T, and they have lots of different modems. If you watch the NASA spaceflight live streams, maybe Boca Chica gal Mary, you might know her. If you're into the space community, she uses not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. She uses 4 separate hotspots to run her live stream, all bonded together to create a seamless internet. But she can't just stick those antenna in a box because the reception is so poor. She has these little antenna that she plug in, and they have about 6 feet of wire and then like some coily antennas at the top underneath a magnet, or on top of a magnet, and she then sticks those magnets to a old cast iron frying pan. And we call it PanLink. So that's now I'm monologuing because my iPhone has decided to overheat. My iPhone has overheated.
You're fine. All right, guys. So this is the greatest jump cut ever.
We just lost Nick out in Starbase, but I'm glad everybody knows where he is and why he's not on the show.
Yeah.
So we don't have to come up with an explanation. But we're still going to try to remain positive about him. We're going to hope he's okay and he can find some good internet sometime sometime in the near future. But what I'm curious about for you, Randy,
is
we've got 90 days or less
until
MacBook season is upon us, and are you still in the market, or is MacBook Air cutting it for you, or are you kind of ready to get something better?
Good question, because I had a situation that happened last night that changed my whole outlook of where
Really?
I'm at. Yep.
Okay.
And it's so much so it made me worry about going on the show today, excluding the whole fire alarm thing that happened. But
That bad?
well, first let me say that I wish Nick was here. I wanted him to hear this, but he can check it out in post. Drew, I'm beginning to think I am a Mac sexual. Yeah.
If that's a thing.
That's a thing.
Yeah, why not?
Why
it's
not?
the internet.
It's the internet.
We have it.
I am Mac sexual, and I don't care who he knows about it.
All right.
Because
he's coming out.
I find myself doing so much more. It's like the post breakup clarity that you get when I walked away from iPad.
I'm trying to break up with my iPad. Yeah. I'm in the same boat.
iPad is beautiful for Procreate when I am doing art stuff, anything with the pencil.
Sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
I keep it open for YouTube while I'm doing my own thing, or I'll have it open if I'm streaming to read chats, and that is it. Everything is now been moved over to my Mac. With that, last night I had a my storage filled up completely, like all the way. And
What'd you get? The 512?
I have the 512, and
Okay.
I was making a Tesla experience video, and it could not finish rendering. And
Oh, shoot.
if I was to clear the cache that Final Cut had, it was going to damage my queue. I have some videos, so my workflow changed because of using half a terabyte, where once I import footage to Final Cut and it renders, I let it sit there and I remove the original file, because the original file is typically bigger than what I would export it as. So I have like music videos. I have all these things put to the side that is like a bit of a rotation that I have with my own workflow, and I ran out of space because of Final Cut. And the problem where I was at is Final Cut was stored locally on the SSD, and I needed to get it to my external SSD, but I could not do that while the file was still open.
I see.
The workaround I did is I got rid of like almost everything in my iCloud off my desktop. And I panicked about that too. And it was this whole mitigating. I was basically kicking the rock down to the next problem, and it was becoming a cycle. So once I had an opening where everything rendered, I moved 250 gigs. I didn't even know I had that much of Final Cut to my external SSD, deleted the local version of it, and immediately I'm like, I am in the market for this new MacBook Pro.
ASAP?
Strictly on a storage thing. And you and I have talked about this enough times. I've talked about it on the show enough times. I need to future-proof this thing, and I'm just having the same problem I had with the iMac. Above
it was the same storage, wasn't it?
Huh?
Your iMac was 512?
Yep. And I was like, MacBook Pros will come out in March.
That's right. We used to think it was so close. It better be close now. You really need it.
For what it is, for what the MacBook Air has done, I love it. It has not once given me a logic issue with the RAM, which is actually, honestly, if I'm being honest, it makes me think maybe I don't need to max out the RAM, which is kind of weird to say.
That's good. Yeah. You were always the RAM guy in the past. But you've been proven otherwise, potentially now.
But I'm like you in the sense, like with the iPhone, for example, it's going to be the thing I hold on for a long time, and I'd rather just kind of cap everything out for growth.
Yeah, sure.
The MacBook Air can carry me to the end of the year easy, and maybe a following year easy. But with that being said, The storage is the limitation, but I am genuinely surprised that the 8 gigs, right? It's 8 gigs I have. No, I have not had any logic issues. Once when I was streaming, did it say, disk ran too slow or some prompt like, 8 gigs of memory.
Ran out of memory.
Very, very niche, specific moment of something that was happening. Where I was like, that makes sense. So
I see.
I maybe 16 gigs will be enough, just maybe. But
yeah, you'd think if you're one instance of 8 gig not being enough, and now we're doubling that.
Yeah.
But it's still unified memory on the system on chip, which is smarter RAM, because I've noticed the RAM options for the 24-inch iMac were actually worse than the 21.5-inch. I don't think they did that because they didn't care. It's probably because unified memory is smarter and easier to maintain. So
for sure,
they're like, you can get 32 gigs of RAM performance with 16 gigs of RAM because it's unified.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'd say maybe don't max out the RAM. We don't even know what maxing out the RAM looks like. They might not offer much.
It might just be 8 gigs.
Yeah, they're like, that's all.
It is what it is. I'm surprised that Final Cut held up well. I mean, it doesn't require RAM the same way, but it still held up well.
Yeah.
Everything about the M1, honestly, dude, it is so cool. It is just so cool to just. I love the MacBook Air so much. I undock it a lot. It came with me when I did my road trip last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever. It came when after we finished doing the show, I left.
Right.
It held up like a champ. The battery life alone is so cool to just see how it's like I push it and it just goes boop. That's it. It's awesome. So
I'm back.
Hey. No, don't nick me.
Starlink for the first time in forever. But I'm glad the MacBook Air is holding up well, because I was I was at a Best Buy recently. I'm not exactly sure why. Someone was trying to buy my friend was trying to pick up a movie, and I was like, okay, let's go to Best Buy. And that's when I saw the HomePod Mini for the first time, and I played music on it. It sounded really great. And then I briefly went over to the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I was just like, I forgot how beautiful this thing is. And it's ever since I saw it, it's messed up all my Mac plans, because I've always been the desktop guy, and I'm all about Mac Mini or Mac Pro and that type of thing. But
what changed?
Ever since I stopped by the Best Buy, those bezels, they're just so thin and it's so huge. It's so not, because the last MacBook I used was the Air, which is about the same size as my iPad Pro. So that's like the biggest mobile display I'm used to looking at regularly. And once I held a 16-inch MacBook Pro again, I was just like, this is awesome. This is really cool. I love how massive, so much screen real estate, and yet I can take it with me on the go. So I guess you could say that the laptop fever is catching on with me. I'm not completely sold on MacBook Pro, but I'm definitely feeling more tempted now than I was before, just after checking one out. And also, I don't know, we're talking about doing more trips next year, but we're not sure about how this Delta variant's going to work out and all that.
Yeah.
But still, there's been a ton of international trips we've been planning ever since 2019 that couldn't happen because of 2020. So I'm still reminding myself that we might be taking some big trips within the time span that I have this next computer, basically. So similar to the iMac Pro, I'm not planning on just stopgapping. I don't plan on this Mac just for a year. I plan on hopefully 5 years, maybe more. Because it's Apple Silicon, and it's probably even going to be overkill for what I need. And I'm really, really interested to see how much better the M1X chip could get. I'm still also really interested in if the Mac Pro gets substantially cheaper, but then that just kind of limits me in the future. If we do take trips and stuff, it basically means you can only work when you're at home, and if you're away from home, there's not going to be much work going on. So
yeah,
I wish I knew what Apple's plan was.
That's
I wish I had
story
a
of our
understanding.
lives.
I know.
I'm sending you a screenshot right now.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to talk you through something. My battery is at 82 because it stops it right there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
it's plugged in, and that's why it's locked the way it's locked with the charge that's happening right there.
Yeah.
But it's not charging it. It take it to 82. It does what, like, you know how I programmed the Model 3 to just kind of stop at a certain point.
Right. For health.
For health. I know your biggest issue with a MacBook is about the long-term battery degradation. And
They just degrade more than desktops do in general.
right. With that, my experience now using MacBook Air for most of the year is, with the efficiencies of it being the Apple Silicon, it's just it doesn't hurt longevity of when you're performing something, but with the health itself, it does these pre-measures so much more. Like, I would be okay if it capping it at 60%, because it's when it knows when it's plugged in. It learned my habit. It's plugged in. When I undock to go into like my recording spot right here, my walk-in closet or something, it knows when it wants to juice. I think I am with you. If you end up doing this, I might be sold on the bigger MacBook Pro.
Oh, really?
Battery?
So, yeah, that's the other question I was going to ask, was the 14-inch versus 16.
Battery?
Bigger battery.
Bigger battery. I, like you, have a lot more trips planned up. And one of the freeing things that I've felt great about this year, excluding the big move, was when I do leave and I bring the MacBook with me.
Yeah.
I've been in a situation where Nick was, hey man, this part didn't upload. Can you resend this? Like, just little things.
Right.
And because it's so light too, that it's like, it's such an out of sight, out of mind thing. I adopted the better to have it and not need it than to need it to not have it mentality.
Right.
And
right.
I am a sucker for thin bezels, big screens, bright nits burning my retinas.
Black bezels.
Listen,
Listen.
no, I'm be honest. Black bezels on a MacBook is the only way to go. If you're gonna have an iPad, I'm indifferent.
That's right.
But
That's right.
but I'm not the guy with the iPad, or I mean the iMac. So I don't.
Right.
I don't care. But I think the bigger variant would be something I would take into consideration now.
It is heavy. It is bulky. It's going to be a bit more of a step when you're packing and that type of thing.
Well,
Bigger brick, more weight, and
could it be that much
it's
more aggressive than
clunky.
the big iPad Pro with the keyboard and all that? Because that sucker's heavy.
it is heavy, but it is physically larger.
Yeah.
Just in person. It's great open, but when it's closed and going in your backpack, it's like, whoa, okay, that thing's really in there. You can tell when you go with the 16-inch, it was like lightness was not the priority here. This is not what the main focus was on. But
And that's important.
I still think to myself, whether or not they'll give it some kind of performance boost over the 14-inch, because it'd honestly be really interesting if it was identical performance on both and the only difference was battery life and size, because then I would almost want to challenge myself to live with the smaller one. But like when I look at a 13-inch MacBook Pro right now, it just doesn't feel as modern.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as updated because of the bezel layout and the thickness, and it's just smaller. Whereas when I checked out that 16-inch MacBook Pro, it just felt so fresh, so new because of how thin it's crazy how much bezels make a difference. But it just looked like a brand new design, despite it coming out in 2019. It's almost 2 years old, and I still walked up to that thinking, this looks great. And I go to the old one and I'm like, MacBooks from 6 years ago looked like this.
Right.
It's like it hasn't changed much.
It's like the iMacs before they got this thing. They almost had it.
Right.
They almost did it right.
Almost had it.
They almost had it. iMac Pro
They're so
will be
close.
the showstopper. I'm genuine, and I said this earlier before Dub even, but I am genuinely more excited about the Mac future than anything else. We've plateaued with iPhones, in my opinion, and iPad just broke all our hearts. So Mac has me
It's
so
true.
excited.
It did. The Mac has the most going on, definitely, because this whole transition phase doesn't happen very often. This is like a once in a decade or sometimes once in a couple decades type thing.
Yeah.
And with the iMac, they clearly showed that they're willing to change up a lot of the design approaches with this transition. It's not just about performance. It's also about how the devices look and that type of thing. So
Right.
that's shaken up everything, obviously. But you're right. We can't really The most exciting thing going on with the iPad lineup for me is the iPad Mini 6.
Right.
Just because it's taking what we loved about the 2018 hardware and finally bringing it to a different footprint, which feels like a big deal because iPad Air just felt like reskinned iPad Pro. It was like dumbed down, basically the same design. It's slightly smaller screen, Touch ID and the power button now, but for the most part, it's just, okay, there's a cheaper iPad Pro
I wouldn't
now.
call it a gimmick, but the idea of the iPad Air last year made me feel more like it was it was more of like a filler. Like, we're going to give you the colors the way we're going to give you iMac the colors. And
that way it feels different.
Yeah, we're going to give you that the same way iPhone 12 Mini will, like, you know, and the watches, and when it comes with if I see something coming out with multiple colors, you're trying to incite a reaction from the ooh, this looks pretty and I want it mind, not the this is the thing I can get things done. And the writing was on the wall.
It means something's wrong.
The writing was on the wall, like maybe iPad might be in trouble because they're focusing on these things. You know what they're doing? Oh my God, they're doing to the iPad what we felt they were doing to the Mac 5 years ago. I really wish they gave more attention to the Mac. Well, now we're getting it, and it's like the iPad is like, I really wish iPad could just have Mac OS.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't really have as big an issue with the sub $1,000 iPads running iPad OS because I just feel like it covers the basics fine. It's more so like the Pro doesn't have much of a purpose if we're turning the Air into basically the Pro, and now we're going to have a Mini Pro with the one size bezel, and it's going to get A15 chip, and we're giving it all this love and attention, but at that point, the only difference between the Pros and the mid-range iPads is going to be like 120 hertz in Face ID.
I was just about to ask you, can you sincerely tell me a positive feature that the iPad Pro offers that you can't get on iPad Air or any of the mid-range ones? Can you think of something that's, and I'm not talking about specs like promotion. I mean something that actually brings intangent value.
Like a feature almost.
Almost like a feature.
Productivity you couldn't achieve with the Air. That's the thing. I don't think so. I mean,
I struggle too.
Everything is so niche. I guess it's also Pro. That's what they've determined is the meaning of Pro is, I guess, Lidar.
God, I forgot
the
about
ultra wide camera. Yeah, they got Lidar.
I go out of my way to not get that.
Yeah, it's really been quite amazing how. Yeah, Lidar has been so widespread across the ecosystem and how little it does. Like the Measure app, though.
If the Mac comes with Lidar, I'll start believing that it's building up to something.
Yeah, maybe there's a
Until
purpose.
then,
I don't think it will, though.
You don't have me sold. I don't know what we're doing with Lidar.
I can't figure it out either.
If
the
Apple
Measure
Watch
app
comes with
doesn't
Lidar,
work well.
you have my attention.
Yeah. They might just throw it on there because they don't know what else to do with the watch. But yeah, all that Lidar can do is like slightly better masking with portrait mode photography, and the Measure app sucks. I'm sorry. No one is actually using the Measure app for genuinely measuring things.
No.
Like there's all these demos of it, like, oh, it can map the square footage of, but no one who actually does that for work trusts it. It's not accurate enough or reliable enough to be like, oh yeah, how long is that? Oh, it's 15 inches. They'd be like, no, it isn't.
No, it's not.
And it gets there's that height feature where you can measure people's height standing in front. It's always wrong. I've tried to show that off to several people.
Yeah,
and
it said I was
incorrect.
5'9", and I'm like, no, I'm not. Sorry, guys, I'm short.
You can be honest, Randy. You can.
I'm short.
But yeah, I really thought it was going to have more of a purpose or more of a selling point than just AR demo is better now. Best argument I could think of is helping it train the Apple Glass algorithms, but even that I don't think it's very good at.
It's not being used.
So
Do you remember last year when we picked up the 12 Pros? I sent you guys a photo, a side-by-side, when I went on like a night walk with my wife, and I was like, here's with the Lidar and everything that's supposed to do, and then here's the one that I did with my 11 Pro, and the 11 Pro was significantly better.
Yeah. No, it was not impressive at all to be like using the night mode trickery plus the background blur. It just resulted in this very orange bizarre
hue. It was so bad.
I say I'm very orange today because there's a ton of smoke over my house before people freak out.
That's just your natural ginger complexion.
Yeah. I look like a carrot today. But Lidar portrait mode is what I'm on right now. It's like very orangey and warm, too warm. I wasn't impressed with it. So I'm getting a Pro Max this year, but it's definitely not because of Lidar. They could ditch that, and I would be totally fine with it. So I don't know what the plan is with that, but iPad Mini 6 at least will give us a new footprint with an updated design.
It's
First time
so
the
beautiful.
iPad Mini will ever look different.
When holding the regular smaller iPad Pro, you're like, man, this feels right. And now to get even smaller, like there's something there, man. Like if I can transfer over the pencil and then that's it.
Right.
We've talked about this. I'd rather let the iPad Pro I have now, the 2018 version, run it to the ground, die out, and then I would go as small as possible with it because I'm sober in this relationship.
Would you see, like, what if, for example, what if you could sell your current iPad Pro and all its accessories, whatever, keyboard, case, and all that, and it would cover the price of a Mini? Would you consider it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would almost recommend that because the deal breaker for me with the Mini is 120 hertz. Like, I notice that, and that bugs me when it's not there. So that's probably what's going to prevent me from getting a Mini, but I don't think you have that same... You don't care. You don't notice.
It's nice to have. My stance on this, I don't know if I've ever made an official stance. It is nice to have,
sure,
and I would like to have it. I take resolution over anything. Over frame rate, I choose resolution. And
and the Mini usually has an increased pixel density. It's not a lowered resolution.
Yeah.
It has the same resolution as the budget iPad, I think, and then they just shrink it down. So if they do that again,
I would hope that it would have the highest pixel density the way the 12 Mini has the highest pixel density.
That's right. It does.
That stuff matters to me. I pinch in, especially with like doing. I am such a sucker for iPhone photos and shot on iPhone and stuff like that.
Sure. Me too.
I do take the pixel part seriously enough that I want it to be a true contender to mirrorless and SLR cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would choose resolution over frame rate or refresh rate. However, I am of the stance that if you can't put it for any reason at all, please put it. It's not a selling factor. iPhone 12 or iPhone 12s, 13, whatever it's going to be called. We don't know what it's going to be called, so stop it. When that comes out, if it has it or if it didn't have it or whatever, but it gave my tipping point of the bokeh video thing, then there you go, awesome. But if it only had one or the other, I wouldn't be sold on it. Which is interesting because now you have me thinking about something with your strategy of iPhone. If it does have portrait video and it is good, because that's my line.
Yeah.
It has to be good.
I just don't think it will be.
Because if it's not good, I'm wasting time.
Yeah.
If it's good,
something you can use.
It has to be something I can use. If it's good, I too will actually go so far against the grain and get the max variant of it.
Wow.
Because battery, screen real estate is important for those things when it comes to photography and videography. I would care about the screen real estate at that point.
That's your viewfinder.
That's the viewfinder. We can't, dude. I'm filming like scenic shots. I'm trying to get my car in or something like that. And when I took the 12 Mini yesterday, and I was tucking down to the floor to try to get this upper angle. I couldn't see it. I'm like, maybe I can get it on my watch, but it's just smaller on the watch, so I can't see anything.
Yeah, that doesn't fix it.
And I'm like, I would need the bigger viewfinder at that point. Battery life, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like if I get longer range vehicles, I want to get longer range battery performance.
Yeah, it would not be for the size that you would get a Max.
It's more about
be a
these
battery decision.
True updated. For once, Apple can say, "Good morning. These are the best iPhones ever," and mean it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
last year sucked.
Yeah, I think they knew they had a bunch of new technology all coming last year with the 5G hype and the new design and OLED on every model. So they were like, we already have a super cycle. We got to leave them we got to leave them wanting more next year. So they probably intentionally chose to cheap out on batteries so that everybody would want another phone this year. And that was smart.
It is.
I'm not going to hate on that. That's clever. I would. Yeah. Pretty wise of them. And if you're holding on to your next phone for years and years, which I do plan on for the first time since ever. I don't recall ever buying an iPhone in the past and just saying, I'm going to see how long I can use this before I have to upgrade. I don't want to upgrade, but I physically need to. And I kind of want to do that for Apple's sake. I want them to come up with a challenge for themselves. Come up with a feature that I can't live without. Come up with something that really would change my mind.
This
and
is
force
you
me
voting
to upgrade,
with your dollar in the other way.
Exactly.
Now.
It's the other way. I'm like, you're going to have to convince me after 120 hertz, just because I was cursed with eyes that can notice these so well that as soon as I know that's an option, I'm going to want it. If they brought it on a Mac, I would want that Mac. But if 120 hertz is on my iPhone and I'm already I have very little complaints with the 12 mini camera.
Yeah.
I still think it's astounding. It's still fantastic image quality, and I wouldn't upgrade for camera improvements at this point. Even the bokeh video thing, I'd be like, oh, that's cool, but I don't plan on doing that enough. And periscope lenses wouldn't convince me. Better 5G wouldn't convince me. Even portless or USB-C wouldn't really convince me. It would just.
What do you think it is?
Would just
then?
be like, oh, it's about time.
Oh, I know what it is for you.
Maybe no notch, or maybe I don't know about the folding. I really want Apple to make a foldable, but I just don't think they will. I think Tim is too big of a. What's the word?
Square.
He's too safe.
Oh,
square.
He's too square.
He's too hesitant to do crazy things with Apple. Everything's so calculated and perfected with all the hardware launches and all the services. Everything's just so perfect and pristine, just like their keynotes. They try to have as little gates as possible and iron out quality control on everything. It's also perfect, which is good in some aspects, but it means that they just don't take the risks that they used to.
Right.
And I don't even necessarily think a foldable is something a lot of people want. It's just something I think Apple could do better than anyone else. And that would definitely get people talking, to say the least. I don't know if I could say I would switch to it and just make that my go-to. That's an interesting question, because every foldable I have reviewed has obviously been like a Samsung or an Android. Right. So every time I try it, I'm like, well, this is definitely not going to replace my iPhone. Right. I'm buying it to review. I'm buying it for the channel to let people know how I think. But if they actually had some software on a foldable that I could live with, that worked with my ecosystem, that I was comfortable using, then the question would really become, can I live with a foldable? Can that become my
if Apple
my go-to?
Takes their time like they are right now, if they were to pursue this path, they've put thought into this, and the UI would change to complement the fold. It would do something like, when closed, it knows to display these always on widgets to give you immediate information with the do not disturb and all that stuff. And then when you open it, like a book or like a handheld or a Palm Pilot, if you will, and you see this, it becomes now I think what it is, I just want iPad mini on all things.
That's what it is. Yeah. The way I always thought of it was iPad OS unfolded, iOS folded up. So
there's an
technically
idea.
You have a calculator app on your iPad. That's the best question. Would the foldable have a calculator app?
Only
or
when
would they
it's
be
closed.
like, it's too, when you unfold it, it locks out the calculator app.
Interesting.
That would be funny. It's just gray. You see it on the home screen, but it doesn't open.
I don't
know. That'd be interesting. But I definitely just want to challenge myself to see how long I can go without upgrading after this year.
To be clear, just because I went so aggressive on size and space and all that stuff, if I'm not convinced or sold about the bokeh video thing, happy with the 12 mini, and because I've been alternating, my SIM is no longer in the 11 Pro, so this is my home phone, and I walk around and I'm mostly home anyway, so I'm using this for beta testing and all that, and I'm having fun. And my watch is no longer upset about being disconnected. And then the moment I leave the house, I have the 12 mini. That has actually subdued my hunger of I need something new. It's like I have something new with me wherever I go, and is cool. So
that is nice.
It's like it's on Apple. Listen, you have time to change this. August 6th, as of recording this. Either get me to buy the biggest and the best, and I will happily pay $1,200, and I'll get this big old phablet in my pocket, but or 12 mini just tucked away, and I won't even get the battery case because Drew hates it. So
it's good for, like, I thought really long and hard about that title. I was like, how do I name this review? And then it finally hit me. Good for lightning lovers. I was like, there's nothing wrong with it if you're a big lightning user. If you're using lightning all the time to charge your phone or to charge your AirPods, then I guess it's fine. The battery capacity isn't very good, but you get the smartness of iOS, and it shows up the percentage and control center and everything. So I was like, if you're not a MagSafe inductive charging person, it makes a lot of sense, but I am not that person.
I am not that person. If you have a MagSafe Duo, this is your worst enemy.
Yeah, which is weird. You'd think that Apple would make accessories that the more you spend, the better they work together. Instead, it's the opposite somehow. I picked up a Pro Max as well last Best Buy trip, and I fell in love all over again. I was just like, ooh,
I miss you.
I remember this.
Yeah.
This is cool. And I still love the Mini. It's the same love I have for the iPad Mini and the iPad Pro, or that I used to have with the iPad Pro, but then the software slapped me in the face. And I was just like, this Mini is really, really cool, but my last issue with the Mini 5 was just that it was dated design. It was like they updated the silicon, but that was about it. I'm glad they're at least giving some attention to the Mini, and I hope they continue to give love to it. But yeah, it was certainly bugging me that it still had the home button and Touch ID and all that, and I wanted the Pro features on that smaller size because it just feels so much more manageable. You can type with just your thumbs, and it's almost in iPhone territory. I'd be really tempted if they let you pair your Apple Watch to the iPad. I would be really tempted to do like an iPad Mini challenge. Just live with that as your phone.
If you could pair your watch, if you could make the iPad the hub of everything, I think we would see a decrease in phone sales a bit, because who's making phone calls, really?
Yeah, really. How often do we do this? Camera would probably be the biggest compromise.
Okay, so camera with iPad, front-facing camera, phenomenal. Camera,
it's decent. Yeah.
Front-facing camera for iPhone, work needs to be done to really push it. Here's why a foldable would be a very strong consideration for me down the road.
Okay.
Give me the strength of what you have on the rear facing for the front, and the best way you can do that is if it folds. And if I could have this as my one and only front face and rear face and everything face, and I could just see that everything about the portrait mode is better on this, the HDR is better, everything about everything is better on that. The front one's great for selfies, it's great for social media, it's great for FaceTime calls, it's great for what it does, but I can't tap to focus for front facing like you can on the rear. It immediately adjusts.
Really?
It gives you the depth of field without the bokeh, natural bokeh. And I'm like, God, this would look so good if I could make a vlog out of this. And so that'd be my wish for iPhone cameras if there was the step, because I'm with you in the sense of what you said earlier. I think it's perfect. I'm so adamant about bokeh video because it's now software based and it's something new. These cameras are beautiful. I don't always hashtag the no filter thing, but you'd be surprised how many times I'd post something on Instagram or Facebook or on a Twitter, and I'm not using a filter.
Yeah, I feel that too. Whenever I'm posting something, I check out the other filters, and I'm like,
nope.
These all make it look worse. I just go with the original. That's typically which filter ends up looking the best is no filter. That says more about the camera.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Wild cards at the event. Do you have any? Do you think there will be any?
September,
October, November. Within 90 days.
Wild card. Something we don't talk about much, but I guess isn't a wild card, would be the budget iPad refresh. I think that's kind of coming out of left field. A lot of people forget about it, but there's been a budget iPad every year since 2017, and this one should have the laminated display, 10.5-inch screen size. So that's kind of something probably not on people's radar that might come out of left field. Aside from that, decent wild card.
A realistic one.
Maybe one that there's been some evidence of, but not super concrete, would be updated full-size HomePod.
I was going to say that. That was going to be my wild card.
I saw the little icon in iOS that Duan Ree was talking about. Of like it didn't look like the OG icon, and it didn't look like the Mini. It was like this middle ground. Apple trying to make. And even, I think it was either 9to5Mac or Mac Rumors was talking about a Nest Hub competitor.
Yeah.
Something that, because they were talking about how HomePod runs a modified tvOS. So if they started making smart speakers that had displays that you could watch content on, but also with the iCloud HomeKit secure video, you can see your security cameras. Like someone rings the doorbell, then the camera shows up on the screen. Google seems to have quite a bit of success with those. I've actually been to several people's houses that just have those. And I'm like,
yeah.
These must be selling pretty well, because they're not techie people I'm seeing, but they just have the Nest Hubs with the screens that are also smart speakers. And I was like, I bet that's kind of right up Apple's territory of like something that has tvOS, but you can also just call out to it and play music. And then it gives you the Apple Music lyrics, and you can watch all the latest Apple TV Plus.
You have a better way to troubleshoot as well natively instead of going to the Home app. And it gives me.
It's true. You could update it right on the screen.
You could do everything right
go
there.
To settings and.
I was gonna say. I was gonna say the HomePod was gonna be the one we get a surprise something. This within the next few months.
Yeah, that's probably top of my wild card prediction. Something that doesn't feel super concrete, but has been briefly
something
talked
that's
about.
Not like groundbreaking. People, I gotta have that. It's not. I'm not talking Apple glasses or anything like that. I'm just saying that.
No, I'm hesitant to ever reference Apple glasses now, just for how long we've been talking about it.
I'll see that. I'll believe it when I see the car.
That's a good one. Apple Car is another great example.
That would be a left field.
I'll believe it when Tim Cook, not Phil Schiller, but when Tim Cook comes out on stage and specifically says, we're making a car, here it is.
Our team is confident we can get this right.
Right.
Wait. Why are you still talking present tense? Don't you mean your team is confident that you got it right?
Right.
Oh, we have not learned our lesson.
I hope they've learned their lesson. I think they have. I think after AirPower, Tim is.
You're talking about Tim Cook playing it safe.
Something.
I think that's one of the last big shames in modern times where they're tail between their legs.
Modern Apple history, they are not proud of AirPower. That's why I don't think even if they found a way to make it work, they wouldn't release it. Just out of sheer, we would have to acknowledge that we talked about it.
Yeah.
And that we didn't make it work. Apple's not that type of company to be like, so we tried to make AirPower, but we just couldn't figure it out, so we canceled it. So instead, it took us 5 years to figure it out, but now it's done, so we're going to release it. It's $400, and we think you're really going to love it. Plus, with MagSafe being out now, AirPower is kind of pointless. So
MagSafe, I think, is a better adaptation of it.
Me too. It's more scalable. You can do the car mount thing. Yep. You can have the desk mounts, and it's far cheaper to make.
You still get your animations and everything like that, too, if it's first party. AirPower is the reason that Johnny Ive left.
It would have been cool if it was more scalable, but I think the more because my hype when AirPower first came out, I thought it was really cool and exciting because I was like, I want a future where you can just drop devices on any surface and they start charging. And AirPower was just the beginning of that. My dream was to just have a big desk, and you could just drop your MacBook on it, your iPad on it, and they all just charge, and it's all seamless. But as we discovered, more companies tried to make AirPower type technology where you could drop the phone anywhere on the mat and it would charge. I was like, oh, this is actually really complicated and expensive, and it gets really hot. So I was like, AirPower's probably going to be $300 plus just for a tiny mat, which is really not that different from a normal Qi charger. On a normal Qi charger, you just drop it on the mat. On AirPower, slightly bigger mat. Woo, so much flexibility of 3 inches. It can go slightly to the left. So it's not really saving much. You still
3
have
inches
to
can go a long way there.
Yeah, I knew there was going to be a joke in there. But
hey.
I set it up.
You set it up.
Here comes the pitch.
My thing with AirPower, why I wanted it so bad was I wanted the same convenience of placing Apple Watch, and what they did with MagSafe Duo is a way better alternative because now you can stand it up for the chain link, or you can lower it down if you have the ability with the watch band.
Nightstand mode works.
It all works, and I didn't realize this is what I wanted, but what I cared about was just the magnets. Apple Watch actually just basically said the same for charging. What they did is they brought that same magnetic snap feature just for iPhone, and that is cool. Bring that to AirPods. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, then it's all good. But AirPods so small that you rest it on the. I got my Duo right here, which is why I'm looking off screen. But you rest it on the MagSafe circle, and it's wherever you place it's still going to charge it because the case is so small. AirPods is the other thing I'm looking forward to. AirPods 3. Just because I appreciate the tech that goes into the Pros. I'm just not comfortable wearing them. I never been comfortable wearing with the suction cup, and that's unfortunate because Beats, I was like, oh no, this is right. No matter how much I chew, and it messing with my ear, my ear canal, it never got loose. AirPods Pro, either update that stuff to make it more comfortable in the ear or something, or I'm okay with AirPods 3.
I hope AirPods 3 fits well because I know the shape is going to be very similar to Pro. So I think there's a middle ground there they can find. But yeah, it's difficult when everyone's ears are different shapes because I know a ton of people that were like, AirPods Pro fit great, but regular AirPods don't, and vice versa. Yeah. So Apple's just doing their best to cover all their bases.
They're doing a good job. It's a hard thing to conquer because so many different ear canals are different sizes. They're doing the best they can, and just to be clear, like nobody's doing it better than Apple, in my opinion. I think they've pretty much done very well in that market. Android has their good alternative for Android, but I've tried some of these other earpieces, and then I've tried the Beats, and I'm like, oh well, that's Apple too, and they did that part right too. It just sits well, better.
AirPods have become the standard. You just see them everywhere now. Yeah. That's just what everyone's using. My main concern is with the price, actually. I think that's my biggest fear with AirPods 3 is that if they keep it at $200, it's just going to feel like Apple wants everyone to get AirPods Pro. It's like it's so close in price, and there's so much more features and customization with the rubber tips and stuff. Yeah. They're basically just saying the future of wireless headphones is $200 plus, and you basically just decide which ear works best for you. And I like the $160 starting price. Even when it first came out, I thought that was a good, fair number. I was expecting it to be over $100. I remember everyone freaking out over $160. That was a long time ago. Now people are like, I hope it's $160. But ever since AirPods have launched, they have literally never done anything to make them cheaper. Yeah. Like, it's only gotten more expensive. They've just come up with more models. The wireless charging options, $200. AirPods Pros, $250. AirPods Max is a joke. And I just want there to be at least some effort to be like, this is the entry price. Yeah. You know, the under $200 to get a nice pair of headphones that work well in your ecosystem. They don't have the greatest ANC in the world. They don't have ANC at all. But there's something for the entry model. And I think that $160 was just such a good price to start with. And It's just a different direction. I feel like they're a whole separate tier apart, whereas if they're 200, it's just the AirPods Pro alternative. Like it's an AirPods Pro modification, where they're too similar
point.
to each other.
And I'd rather the price doesn't change and they just keep making it better than coming at a cheaper price point. And I say that because these things have represented the paradigm shift that people all use wireless now. Most people do. I do see some wired earbuds out there, but there's obviously that's the exception, not the rule. Now they're
being phased out.
Yeah, this is the expectation that people just acknowledge that that's what it is. And I'm talking even outside of Apple, that wireless earbuds is now just the thing. And because before, I remember in the early 2000s, what everybody had was those on-ear foamy with the plastic.
Right.
And everybody had that with their CD player. Yep. And that was the thing. And then Apple came out with AirPods, and then they had that, and then that became the thing. Now they have wireless as true wireless, and that is now the thing. And I would rather just improve the tech, make it better. But like I say that with the hesitancy that I am having issues with every Apple earbud that I have right now. The Pro is crackling. Right. The stems on these ones, the right stem just doesn't charge. I have to trick the case to acknowledge.
Yeah, that happens to me too. It won't charge.
Here's what I did to fix it.
A Q-tip helps.
This is how I fix it. Take out, when you open it up and you take them both out, and I actually, you know what helped me? The most useless widget on iOS, the battery indicator.
Yeah, it tells you
is the most helpful feature.
That's my favorite use of the widget, is to let you know your AirPods aren't charging
it
correctly.
Works, Drew.
It does. It just works.
So I take it out and I put the right one in only. If my indicator turns orange like it just did right there, I know it's charging. I close it, and I just watch the widget charge. When it gets too full, then I drop the left one in, because the left one will charge it just fine. If you put both of them in there, it's only going to charge the left one. And I think that's a software bug.
Well, I think there's debris and stuff that gets caught on the pins at the bottom, because I've taken a Q-tip to my charge case and had it start working better once I cleaned it out. Just because your AirPods are out and collecting stuff, and then the case collects dust, and then it falls to the bottom of the charge area. So that's what I tried. It still is a design flaw, though, I would say. There needs to be the other thing AirPods could really use some work on that I would applaud Apple for is longevity, because physically the batteries, as they get age, and because they're so small, they age pretty quick, which is why most people can't let their AirPods last more than a couple of years before one gets too quiet, or the cycles get out of sync with each other and earwax build up. So if there was a way, I think they've done the software update now where it'll not charge the AirPods to 100% depending on the time of day. At certain times they'll just go to 80 to kind of preserve battery health, but I don't know how far that's going to be able to take them. I'm not sure. My AirPods Pro have been working great for me so far. It took me a whole replacement. I had to get a new case and a new left bud, but since then everything's been fine, and I loved using ANC on my flight, but there's just this, I don't know, there's this internal challenge I'm struggling with. I want to see if next year I could maybe not buy any Apple products.
Ooh.
But I guess that would probably only be if I get a MacBook Pro this year.
Are you
sold on
excluding review units?
Yeah, I probably should, huh?
I feel like you should. I think... Yeah, I think you should. I like the challenge. Or unless part of the challenge is like, can you cover the news without having it the same way you cover EVs without having one? Like people, one thing that we've noticed about your channel is that people will come to you regardless because of what you have to say, not necessarily what you have.
It's true. My reviews are not the best viewed.
Right.
It's always talking hypothetical videos that do.
That's an interesting challenge. Yeah. All right.
I'm split on it because I don't know. 100%. If I'm not getting a MacBook Pro this year, then I definitely want to get a Mac of some kind next year.
For sure.
That I keep. Just buying review products to talk about my experience and then return probably shouldn't count because
I would say
a
it
bunch of stuff
doesn't
comes
unless you really want to just commit to some form of torture. I don't know.
torture.
So what would make you not
Yeah.
get the MacBook at the end of this year, the 16-inch?
I guess if the M1X is not super impressive,
Fair.
I am definitely at least expecting much better than the M1, and I'm also assuming better than my iMac Pro. But if it's just like slightly better, it's like, oh, the video exported in 30 seconds instead of 45 seconds. Well, I guess that's more major, isn't it?
I get what you, I
bigger
get what you
difference
mean,
would
though.
be
I'm tracking you.
if
It's basically that chart, that very technical chart where it's like, here is where M1 will take us, as opposed to like,
right. Yeah.
you like it needs to have the significant spike still, where it's like, okay, if this is
Yeah.
M1 right here, M2, M3X, and like to have that big spike. So you're looking for.
I want a big jump.
You want a big.
from my
I know
iMac
what
Pro.
you're looking for. Is you're looking for a proper Mac Pro replacement on the Intel side as close as possible.
Kinda. Yeah, I definitely don't want to spend $6,000
For sure.
plus dollars on my next Mac, and the portability argument's creeping up on me. It wasn't there before, but as we plan more things, it's like, okay, that's starting to make more sense. So it'll be a tough call, I think, because I definitely plan on getting one at least to review.
Yeah.
So I think my plan is to buy one like I'm going to keep it, and then depending on how the review process goes, maybe return it, maybe not. So if it's leaps and bounds better and I feel like I can't reach the limits of the chip, then I could see myself keeping it.
Test it with the red footage.
Yeah, of course. That's definitely going to be a big
I feel like that would be your best
tester.
indicator of what the MacBook Pro can then do for you if it renders it.
Another one is a situation as I'm doing a lot of live streaming and also exporting a lot of content is it's one of the limits I've discovered of my iMac Pro is it's not very good when I start exporting a video while I'm live streaming. It's a hyper-specific example that doesn't happen to most people, but it's just one of those things where when I do it, the export speed slows way, way down.
Sure.
The fans rev up to full, gets really loud, and sometimes OBS will even say, encoding overloaded. Like, it's not an internet issue. The CPU isn't free enough. So I was like, that's another one of those scenarios that, like, I'm probably going to run into that a lot in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure it's really good at handling that. And obviously, if it doesn't outperform my iMac Pro at all, that would be kind of a deal breaker. That would be
Right.
like, well, why even bother? It's a slower Mac. And I don't want to upgrade my Mac just for the sake of
How do you feel about
upgrading it.
if you got a MacBook Pro? I'm gonna give you another. It's okay to have a hyper specific situation like streaming and exporting
Yeah.
because it's relevant to you.
When you're spending this much money,
Yeah,
it's okay
relevant
to be picky.
you. It's specific enough that it proves the point of efficiency all the same. So I don't discredit that as an argument for or against. But let me ask you this: getting MacBook Pro 16-inch and it works well, would you update your space gray accessories to get the one with the Touch ID and all that stuff on it now as well?
Oh,
Because it's M1
That's a good question.
plus compatible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. I'm speaking
Yeah,
like I'm
I
thinking
don't
for
know.
myself. I would do it.
Yeah. I could understand why someone would. Someone was mentioning that earlier because I said something like, you can get the Magic Keyboard with Touch ID now for any Mac, which is kind of cool, as long as it has M1.
Right.
And people were like, but most of the M1 Macs already have Touch ID. And I was like, well, some people fold up the laptop and dock it and use an external keyboard. So having Touch ID right there, you've technically got two Touch ID sensors. But I don't think I would just because I use my Apple Watch to unlock the Mac mostly. I find myself doing that with the iMac Pro. I just walk up to it and slap the space bar and it unlocks and I get the little vibration on the watch. And also with the setup I'm imagining, like right now, I hate iPad OS for those who don't know. So my iPad has become like a designated sidecar machine. I'm mainly just, it's plugged into my Sometimes not even plugged in because Sidecar works wirelessly. So I just put essentially Discord from macOS on my iPad. That way I have fake universal control, so I can slide my mouse over to the iPad, do some stuff over here. When I'm live streaming, I'll put OBS down there, so I have the live chat available on the big screen. So I'm kind of getting comfortable with this small screen, big screen combo that I'm doing with my iPad and my iMac, and the iPad is basically becoming an external monitor now. Other than when I want it to be iPad OS for video thumbnails and that kind of thing, I can just swipe up from the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like I'm pretending I have my dream. It's like it's running Mac OS. Ha ha ha! Pretend the iMac's not doing anything. And then when I want iPad OS, I can just swipe up. Yeah, this is fine. So I'm in denial, basically, doing the best I can to pretend my iPad is dual booting Mac OS in a way it kind of feels like it is. So when I get a MacBook Pro, I'll probably, for my desk setup, keep it open, use the built-in keyboard, and just have a mouse on the side. But I don't know which mouse yet. I'm not sure because they don't sell these anymore, and I don't want a silver mouse. So
is there
I would have the
something
keyboard
wrong with that mouse as opposed to the new one? Is there a new feature with the new one?
No, that's funny though. They on the site say new accessories.
That's what I'm saying.
And the Magic Mouse is listed. There's literally no difference. I mean, someone said it might have Bluetooth 5, but I can't confirm that because it doesn't say on the tech specs. It's the exact same charging method.
What's new
it
about
technically comes with a different cable. It comes with a braided USB-C to Lightning cable, and I think the old Magic Mouse came with USB-A to Lightning.
Oh, good for
non-braided.
you.
So they consider that new, but I'm on the page right now. I'm looking at it, and it literally looks identical. Like it's the same
Yeah.
bumpers on the bottom, and it's the same connector. It's the same logo, same power on and on switch, on and off switch. So no, I really don't care to get another silver mouse again. I
honestly, you kind of just changed my thought process about the whole Apple Watch thing. I forgot I can unlock with Apple Watch.
I'm glad they sell it separately, but I do think that if you have an Apple Watch and that unlocks the Mac, it's way cheaper and easier.
I will admit, though, when I'm home, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch as much or if at all. I go days without wearing it. And
gotcha.
But my password, look, I'm going to be honest. My password's so small because to get access, like my Mac is right here. It's not like a password you can figure it out. But it's such a short letter that it's no bone off my back to just go enter done. It's just that's not a deal breaker for me. It's just convenient that it automatically does it. But I completely forgot my Apple Watch unlocks my Mac, so I don't think I would.
I'm
get
not
the
that
keyboard.
way. I guess that's why I see it differently, is just because I always wear my Apple Watch. Even on my lazy days when I go nowhere, I put on my watch just if I'm walking to the living room and back, and I feel naked without it. I've just gotten comfortable with it, and
that's fair.
I don't walk in the office without my watch on. So
speaking of the Apple Watch, though, that is the one thing I'm actually kind of looking forward to upgrading this year, just for continuity.
I'm sad how tempted I am because I keep thinking about having this rounded off watch when everything's moved to squared off, and how that's really gonna bother me. And I'm like, am I the type of guy to just buy a new watch so it matches my iPhone chassis? And I'm like,
yes.
My heart says yes, my brain says no. And
your brain,
I'm torn.
Your brain has no power here.
Because that would also help me with the no Apple products next year thing.
If you got the Apple Watch this year, can you confidently say, I don't care what comes out next year with the watch, I'm not getting it?
I think so.
Can you confidently say that with the
how
Series 6 right now?
I felt when I got this watch, I was like, I don't need to upgrade this. It's going to be fine for years. I don't see a problem. And then they were like, design symmetry. And I'm like, come on. That's kind of important. So it's not important, but my brain thinks it is for some reason.
It is important because Apple knows how to turn off brain logic for... That's so pretty.
They know the way to my heart. I'm thinking of maybe trying to sell it before the event happens.
So you can get a higher return? That's smart.
Yeah, higher resale value. If I could put a nice big dent into the price of the Series 7. It's just going to be really awkward if it turns out it's not squared off. If all those
Are you going to go
rumors
to
turned out being
SE
wrong.
just to
I'd
recoup
be
costs?
Yeah, I probably would if that happened. It's like I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Like, I believe these leaks and rumors enough that I'm willing to sell my watch now in preparation.
You fool. Have you
And then I would
learned
lose out
nothing?
I'd lose out on my red watch, which I do like, but
It's a good looking watch.
It's-
Your red and black combo
I-
is just...
I love the look, but I miss not having sapphire.
Hold it
because
up.
under certain lighting, I can. Well, it's hard to see on FaceTime.
No,
I'm
no,
sure,
no. That's
but-
what I wanted to see was it next to your PewDiePie chair. It's so perfect.
Oh yeah, they go well together.
Yeah.
I was toying around with the store last night. I was like, if I did get a Series 7, I'd probably want to get a steel one with sapphire, match the Pro Max, and then I'd be like, okay, this is the combo. I'll sign a contract, whatever I got to do to say I'm not upgrading this combo for many, many years because I don't want to be the guy that gets a new watch every year.
I
but-
have a fundamental issue with the stainless steel variant.
It's just the fingerprints or
Nope.
the weight?
Nope. The price.
Oh yeah, it is high. It's
I
definitely up there.
in good faith have never got one, or I've thrown on Nick's gold one for 5 minutes and I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. I know there's a shelf life with these things. The only reason why I'm upgrading this one is because the battery is I get a day out of it, and
Yeah.
it's not like how watches, non-smart watches are. Smart watches are meant to
Sure.
be charged and all stuff like that. And I, in good conscience, I can't justify
that high a price.
that high a price knowing it's going to
Yeah.
stick around 3 years. It's hard. And what's weird is
That's
because
fair.
I feel like a hypocrite because I'll do the phone fine, but now I have this weird tick where I'm just like, no, I'll just hold on to both, and I got 2 of them here now. I'm good.
Well, the phone holds the resale value a lot better.
That's true, but okay, when you spend that much on an iPad or Mac, it's true utility out of it. You're using it. You're getting
yeah.
money out of it. With the watch is a passive experience. Apple Watch is passive.
Yeah. Watch is not a tool.
It's not-
iPhone, you can argue as a tool. Mac, you can argue as a tool. Even iPad, to a certain
You
extent,
can.
you can argue as a tool.
But
watch
watch is passive.
is
It's the same reason why
It's
you won't spend
somewhat helpful,
$550
but-
for AirPods Max. It's a passive
Right.
thing. I can't justify a certain threshold. I don't know what that number is, but there's a threshold I cannot justify for a passive experience. It just doesn't.
Well, they designed it in a way to not be a tool. They made it so about the user, the end user active noise cancellation, but then they don't give it lossless and they don't give it the low
Yeah.
latency wired. They don't include the wire with it. You got to spend extra on that. So it was like, it could have been a tool, but they went all HomePod
if they
with
made it for studio production that producers can utilize, as not as
Yeah.
like that's their tool, but as a point of reference of measuring the capabilities of it.
Right.
Then you'd have a different conversation. But like these things give you all of that, and it's
Sure.
like $200. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
that's my point
watch
of reference. $200.
By definition, a fashion thing.
Yeah.
It's a fashion piece. It's all about the looks
Yeah.
and the bands and that's partly why the squared off design makes such a big difference, because it is a wearable. That's something you have on and keep on you at all times. How you look with it is, I guess, pretty important to a watch wearer.
Would
so.
you get the edition, Apple Watch edition, like ceramic or
No,
or
I'm already iffy on steel. That's already a stretch for me. I'm kind of like whether or not I'll upgrade or not. But I used to want to get edition, but after seeing the resale values, and then of course, as we've had Apple Watches for many years now, we've all kind of figured out what the shelf life, like you said, is on them. You know that if you're comfortable with the watch and you want to keep wearing one, you're basically going to be buying a new one at least every 3 or 4 years.
For sure.
Like for sure. Because then the battery's going to conk out on you and you're going to need to.
this one did not
It's not
make
going to be easy to replace.
it did not make the length the same way Series 0 did for me.
Yeah, your health went out quicker. I wonder how long I could last. It's another good question. It's the same thing as the iPhone. Like, if I got a watch this year, how long could I keep it before the battery health was like unusable? When I turn off the always on display on my Series 6, I end the day at like 75% 5%.
Nice.
So I feel like, and this is with battery health at 97%. But yeah, lately I've had it off, and at the end of the day, it's not even gone below 70. So I'm like, I wonder what 4 years of cycles on this would be like. I'm not sure.
Do you have honeycomb or grid when you go? I have
honeycomb.
I have grid.
I don't know why people like grid. I tried it the other day, and I was like, it's so much harder to get where I want to go.
I think because it's bigger. I think it's just easier for me to read.
Oh, this is bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, maybe I'm just mixing it up because I'm bored.
Yeah, there you go. I just thought it was funny because one time I remember Marquez or someone complaining about how the iPad layout doesn't allow for many apps, which it still has that problem. Like there's all this padding and space between all the apps.
Interesting.
And I was like, yeah, that's weird. I wish they would let you fit more apps on there like they did on iPadOS 14. But then he also was reviewing the Apple Watch one time, and he was like, thankfully they have grid view now. I don't know why you would do honeycomb. And I was like, the honeycomb is like the best use of screen real estate. Like you have this tiny screen and you can fit all these apps on it all at once. And I love not having text. Like I wish on iOS you could get rid of the labels on apps.
Oh, like how the dock has no text on it?
Yeah, there's no text. I like not having letters and you can just see the shape, you see the icon and you know what it means. You know, okay, that's the Messages app, that's the clock app, and you just know. I know Jailbreak lets you, but I wish iOS would let you get rid of the text. So I love the honeycomb view for that reason, but it is pretty small, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised by how specific it can be. Even when the calculator is like tiny and really, really far away on the home screen, I can still tap it and it opens. Like it knows the precision.
That's awesome.
It's like surprisingly spot on.
I like that it has a
the
tip
icons
feature.
being smile. Yeah, that was smart. They were clever. I've never used it, but
I do.
we usually just round up.
I'm just curious.
15.
I'll put it in as like, what is it? What does that look like? That looks like 22%. Man, I'm cool.
I'm cool. Yeah. Well, I know you got to get going, but were there
Oh
any
my
closing
goodness!
thoughts?
I didn't even know it was 3. Look how it went by. Look at that. Sorry, Nick. I'm sorry you're not here. We just, excited about
We
stuff.
miss you, Nick. Hope he's okay. Glad we covered all aspects of the ecosystem, I think. And
good little recap.
We'll see you next week.
The takeaway that this episode needs to be, outside of Nick being a nomad, is it's either you have to impress me so much next month, next month you have to impress me so much that I go against everything that I stand for and go very, very big. Or if something falls, I'm sticking with everything I got now. So it's either Apple's gonna make a lot of money off of me or not a penny.
Yeah. Except the Apple Watch, right? That's for sure.
Apple Watch is 100% regardless is gonna happen. Okay. That's fair.
You're not getting a penny out of me.
Except
how much
Apple.
is the Series?
How much is that?
I'll take one of those.
Okay, you'll
Thank
get
you.
7,000 pennies out of me or something.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm tempted, but I guess it'll just depend on if I can sell this or not. For a good, if I can get a good deal on the 6, I'll be more tempted to get a 7.
Start selling
we'll
it now.
try. We'll
You'll go a couple of weeks with no Apple Watch, and then you'll appreciate Touch ID on a wireless keyboard, and then there you go.
Apple might get a lot of my money in the next couple months.
Just out of necessity.
Good luck. Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.